This is the unhappiest day in my life. It is not as though I lost a friend, and it's not as though I lost a job. What it is though I have lost a country. For 92 years, I lived the life of the American dream. That American dream is now an endless, criminal, cultural, political, economic nightmare. Last week I spent in Washington, D.C., paying honor to one of the best investigative journalists in America. His name is Wayne Madsen. And I was really happy about doing that because he deserved it. As a matter of fact, when JFK Jr. owned George Magazine, John Jr. wanted to turn it into the East Coast Ramparts magazine, the magazine that ended the Vietnam War. He wanted to hire Wayne and two others to investigate the murder of his father, helping to convert that magazine into something a whole lot more meaningful. He was going to use it as a platform to run for the Senate, and then for the presidency, and then to fully open up the investigation into the murder of his father. Unfortunately, just 3 months after the interview and hiring of Wayne Madsen, John Jr. was murdered in a plane crash. In any event, I am saddened beyond belief by what has happened to this American dream of mine for 92 years. While I was in New York, I was part of a press club panel paying honor to my friend, and I didn't want to look at any news at all. I was just so depressed by everything. I just thought I would relax and enjoy the moment. But while I was waiting to look into a golf match, I accidentally turned on the news, and what did I see? Some guy at a casino in Las Vegas picks up an AK-47 or whatever that thing is, got into a car, and drove 4,000 miles to New York City to murder 4 strange New Yorkers. What has gone wrong with people? I mean, if you're in Las Vegas and want to shoot New Yorkers, you can shoot New Yorkers all day long in this town. You don't have to get in a car and go after strangers. And then why on earth would you go after strangers if you're going back 3,000 or 4,000 miles to New York City? Why don't you travel a little further to the House of Representatives, to the Senate, to the White House? You'll find over 500 politicians, including a president, who are worthy of your rage. When I first came to this country as a runaway orphan child, when I was around 17 years of age, I came here illegally. But when I came here, I had a future. I was only a kid. I had my own future to look forward to. And a young president, John Kennedy, had just been elected, the first peacetime president in 100 years to be elected to this country. So America and the world had a future. There was a magnificent future, and I was about to live it, and I did, and much more successfully than ever I wildly imagined. I mean, my pockets were empty, but my heart was full of the joy and the future that was in me and that was offered by this country when I got here, first illegally, and then fortunately, very legally, where I had my family, and my most unimagined luck in show business that I never, ever could have imagined beyond my wildest dreams. But I had a future, and America had a future. But America has no more future. When I got here, it was Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan, it was trickle-down economics while he was in the White House. Now we have Donald Trump in the White House, and it's trickle-down criminality, corruption, cruelty, and venality. Okay? And that is never, ever, ever going to away. And I recall Nixon. Nixon was always on camera screaming at the camera and screaming at us that there was crime in the streets. He saw it all over the place. They even made movies called Crime in the Streets, okay? But now the crime is not in the streets. The crime is in the Senate. Crime is in the Congress. The crime is in the White House itself. I mean, it is all over. That future of America is over and done with and never will reappear again. When Marlon Brando, as Mark Antony, stood over the assassinated body of Julius Caesar, assassinated by Brutus, he said, "The good that men do is oft interred with their bones. The evil that men do live after them." Well, let me tell you something. If Donald Trump were to die today, which wouldn't be too soon for a lot of us, there is not one speck of goodness in that body or soul that would be interred with his bones. All that he has left this country is a tsunami of evil and corruption that will filter for generations down through every aspect of this country, destroying all its laws, destroying all its people, destroying everything absolutely worthy of this once magnificent country. It will never, ever be the same. And that is why, for me, it is the very saddest day in my entire life. I am 92. So like America, I have no future either, and I'm not going anywhere. But I don't wish to go anywhere. I absolutely love my house, and I love my family. If you take a look at my house, inside this magnificent home, aside from living with the most magnificent wife who ever lived, who was surviving magnificently in spite of her crippling edema, we have the greatest artifacts from show business that could exist in any museum in California. And I love living with them. I love looking at them. And I loved earning them, which I did. I mean, look at the numbers of jobs that I succeeded at without even planning it. I just kept going and going and going, and these opportunities popped up. Fortunately, I was given a gift of a modicum of talent, and I took advantage of it and became very, very, very successful. And fortunately, I have, aside from the greatest wife, the absolute greatest child any human being could have, because my son had the greatest mother and father that any child could ever have, and he readily admits it. And I never ever give advice, But because of what has happened to this once magnificently beloved country that I fought for and I told great stories about and great documentaries about how Jim Garrison solved the murder of John Kennedy, how William Pepper solved the murder of Martin Luther King, how I helped others do documentaries about the solving of the murder of RFK. I was doing everything to promote my love for this country and the country that made my life and my career and my family possible, which is now impossible. I called my son aside the other day. He is enormously successful in his business and has been for the last 30 or 35 years in writing these criminal documentaries. I don't know how he does it, how he comes up with so many versions of the same crime. That's a genius in itself. As a matter of fact, he's only one of 3 geniuses I've ever met. The first was, of course, Jim Garrison, then Buckminster Fuller, and now my son. And I said, and my son has an equally brilliant wife. She, after a very tough life, became a therapist, a licensed therapist, who in Hollywood treats people with those 3 addictions of sex, alcohol, and dope, so she will never, ever run out of customers. So anyway, I called my son and I said to him, you know what, Christopher, I never give advice, as you well know, but I'm just going to make a little observation for you, okay? I said in a few years, you are going to think about retiring. Now, you and Annadelle are going to end up in the 1% of the retirement funds. I mean, you're also there now with the earnings that you make, but when you retire, you'll be able to live any place in the world. You could live in Russia, you could live in Portugal, you could live in China, you could live in Japan, you could live anywhere. But I'm not going to tell you where to live. That is some place you will pick, but I will tell you this. It strikes me as awfully and wonderfully ironic that here you have this troubled, lonely young man, your father, deported twice from the United States, kept coming back until I finally got my citizenships granted to me by Senator John Tunney. Okay? And I'm going to say this to you. America is not a safe country to live in or even be in. You can see that. Any idiot can see that. There is nothing but vile corruption growing and growing that will bring this country down to absolutely nothing where it already is now. Now, a lot of people are doing very well. A number of my friends are getting quite rich because we live in a garbage dump. And if cockroaches live in a garbage dump, they can find food, they can find mates, they can find anything, and have a great life in a garbage dump. Well, 2 or 3 of my friends are doing very, very well living in the garbage dump that is now America. But I am not turned on by a garbage dump. I am turned on by intelligence. I am turned on by talent. And it does not exist at any of the higher levels in this country, either in government or the media. You got a guy, Joe Rogan, who got made a living eating cockroaches, and now he puts a real cockroach in the White House. What kind of life is that, for God's sake? So, my suggestion, and it is only suggestion to you, is that when you reach the age of your retirement, you look at the places where you think you might be the happiest, and I assure you, you are not living in one of those places now. So it'll be a magnificent touch of irony, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but let me tell you this. This will enhance your life. This will enhance your wife's life. This will improve the safety of you intellectually and physically. It will improve the safety of your wife and any of your dear ones if you get out of this country. So, since I came from Canada, and wouldn't that be a wonderful turnaround story if my son, this very bright genius, ended up taking his wife and his talents back to British Columbia. And in Vancouver, which is by far the most beautiful city in the world, and one of the production centers of motion pictures and television on the planet, you would never have any difficulty finding the greatest of jobs and the greatest of places to live. So it is just my suggestion, my son, because aside from your mother, there is no one that means more to me than my son. Because had you not been born when I did not want a child, I would have not had a life. Because the moment I held you, I knew that my life was not mine anymore. I had to devote it to you. And I did. I devoted it to you and to your magnificent mother. And because of that, my life not only was enhanced, but my luck was enhanced. Now, Woody Allen believes that everything is luck. Well, it might be. You know your father is an atheist, so I don't believe there is a God. But I do believe in divine intervention. And all throughout my life, whenever I got in trouble, out of nowhere came scores and scores of men and women there to help me for a day, or a week, or a month, or a few years, and bring me back to normal and a happy life. You do not know how happy and lucky and magnificent a life your father has lived, and all of it unplanned. And I have a half a dozen very religious friends who said, John, I have got to tell you something. For an atheist, I am telling you, there is something up there that planned this magnificent life for you. And you may not want to call it a God, you might not want to call it anything else, but you do have to recognize it as divine intervention. And it was indeed divine intervention. Well, I just don't want to go on any more doing this. Honest to God, I love you so much. I love Annadelle so much. And I just hope you end up going to Vancouver and follow in the birthplace of your father, where you could be reborn. I love you so much, dear.